For years, the website GirlsDoPorn operated under a facade of legitimacy while perpetrating a far-reaching deception. Founded in 2009 by James Pratt, the site advertised fake modeling jobs to lure young women, often in their late teens or early 20s, into filming pornographic videos. Many women were told that they would be doing a clothed photo shoot, only to discover upon arrival, usually in San Diego, that the modeling gig was in fact a pornographic film shoot. Pratt and his band of associates falsely promised the women that these videos would never be posted online or seen in the United States. They claimed that the videos were for private collectors or for overseas DVDs only. In truth, the videos were uploaded to the GirlsDoPorn website, with teaser clips posted on popular free sites like Pornhub to drive traffic. Between 2012 and 2019, Pratt's sites generated over $17 million in subscription revenue as millions watched those videos online. The impact on the victims was devastating. Each woman was paid just a few $1,000s for their shoot, often far less than promised, and many endured hours of filming under duress despite being told that it would be quick. Some women were not allowed to leave until the video was completed. Others were threatened with lawsuits or canceled flights home if they tried to back out. Several women later described being coerced into sexual acts they had initially refused. After the shoots, believing their videos would remain anonymous and overseas, the women returned home. Then, the betrayal came. The videos went live on the internet, and personal details of the women, such as their names, their social media accounts, etc., were leaked on a site run by Pratt to expose the women. The consequences were life-altering. Victims recounted losing jobs, scholarships, being evicted or disowned by their family. Many experienced anxiety, depression, and post-traumatic stress, and some attempted suicide. Legal action began in 2016 when 22 women filed a civil lawsuit against Pratt, co-owner of the site Matthew Wolf, male performer Ruben Andre Garcia, and others, alleging fraud, misrepresentation, and emotional distress. In January 2020, a San Diego court ruled in the victims' favor, awarding roughly $12.7 million in damages and granting the women ownership of their videos. The GirlsDoPorn website was taken offline that month. However, the women saw no payment for quite some time as Pratt had already filed a dubious bankruptcy and fled the country. In December 2023, Pornhub's parent company agreed to pay a $1.8 million fine and compensation to these victims for hosting the videos, one of several measures of belated accountability. Meanwhile, a federal criminal investigation was underway. In October 2019, a grand jury indicted Pratt and several of his associates on charges of sex trafficking by force, fraud, and coercion. By then, Pratt had liquidated his assets and fled the United States to evade arrest. Over the following months, additional indictments rolled out. By November 2019, 6 people tied to GirlsDoPorn were facing federal charges, and 2 others were charged in December of that year with obstruction of the sex trafficking investigation. For over 3 years, Pratt remained a fugitive, one of the FBI's 10 most wanted criminals. The FBI plastered Pratt's face on wanted posters and offered a $100,000 reward for information leading to his arrest. All the while, his co-defendants were being arraigned and some began to plead guilty back in San Diego. But Pratt's luck ran out at the end of 2022. In December, agents with the Spanish National Police tracked Pratt down in Madrid, Spain, and placed him under arrest. The international manhunt was finally over, after nearly 3 years. Pratt, then 40 years old, was in custody in a foreign jail as US authorities began working to bring him back to face justice. The extradition process took some time as Pratt initially fought it in court. He remained detained in Spain throughout 2023 while the US government pursued his return on the sex trafficking, coercion, and child pornography charges. Finally, in March 2024, Pratt was extradited to San Diego under tight security. After 5 years on the run, the alleged mastermind of the GirlsDoPorn scheme set foot on US soil to answer for his crimes. Pratt made his first appearance in San Diego federal court on March 19, 2024. Shackled and flanked by US Marshals, he was formally arraigned on a 19-count indictment that included charges of sex trafficking of a minor, production of child pornography, and money laundering. Pratt entered a not guilty plea at the arraignment. At a detention hearing 2 days later, he waived his right to bail, agreeing to remain in custody while awaiting trial. His attorney noted the waiver was without prejudice, meaning Pratt reserved the right to request bail later, but for the time being, he would stay behind bars. Given the gravity of the charges and Pratt's history as a fugitive, there was little doubt that he would remain jailed through the legal proceedings. For the victims and the prosecutors, Pratt's capture marked a turning point. One federal prosecutor described it as the beginning of the end of this long fight for justice. Pratt's arrest meant that the last and arguably most culpable figure in the scheme was finally facing a courtroom, a moment that many victims feared might never come. Still, a challenging road lay ahead. A complex trial loomed, potentially featuring testimony from dozens of women describing traumatic experiences. Pratt initially maintained his innocence, setting the stage for a high-profile trial. But, as you can imagine, developments in the case would soon change that trajectory. While Pratt had been on the run, the legal cases against his co-conspirators moved forward. One by one, they began to accept responsibility in federal court, shedding more light on the coercive and abusive porn scheme and ensuring that key players were held accountable. Ruben Andre Garcia, now 36 years old, was the male performer featured in most of the GirlsDoPorn videos and a recruiter of new victims. In many ways, Garcia was Pratt's on-camera accomplice and enforcer. Prosecutors say it was Garcia whom Pratt tasked with finding young women and even reference girls, women paid to lie to new recruits about how the videos would be used. Chillingly, at least one victim was underage during filming. Garcia was arrested in October 2019 along with Matthew Wolff. Facing overwhelming evidence and testimony, Garcia eventually pleaded guilty to sex trafficking charges. In June 2021, a federal judge sentenced Ruben Andre Garcia to 20 years in prison for his role in the scheme. Garcia, who once boasted of his porn performances, apologized in court and acknowledged that he had devastated the lives of numerous young women. He is currently serving his 20-year sentence in a federal prison. Then there's Theodore or Teddy Gee, a contract videographer for GirlsDoPorn, who also chose to cooperate with authorities. Gee filmed over 100 of the videos and was present for many of the coerced sex acts, making him a witness to the deceptive tactics used by GirlsDoPorn. He was indicted for his part in the conspiracy, and by mid-2021, he agreed to plead guilty to a conspiracy count. Gee provided information to investigators, expressing remorse for the pain that the videos caused. In November 2022, Judge Janice Sammartino sentenced Theodore Gee to 4 years in prison. This relatively lesser sentence reflected in part Gee's lesser role and his cooperation with authorities. He also was later ordered to pay over $100,000 in restitution to victims while serving his term. Gee was the camera operator behind many of the scenes, but victims noted that he too had lied to them about the videos staying offline. In fact, evidence showed that Matthew Wolff instructed Teddy Gee to lie to the women if asked, and Gee admitted he did so on Pratt's orders. Gee's sentencing in 2022 was another milestone, as he publicly apologized and the court acknowledged his assistance in securing other convictions. Valerie Moser, 42 years old, served as GirlsDoPorn's office manager and bookkeeper. She handled payments and logistics for many of the shoots, and victims recalled her being one of the contacts who arranged their travel. Moser was charged as part of the conspiracy for helping facilitate the fraud. She too eventually pleaded guilty, specifically to conspiracy to commit sex trafficking, in exchange for a possible lighter sentence. Moser has been cooperating with federal authorities. It's believed she provided insight into the company's finances and Michael Pratt's flight from justice. As of now, Moser awaits sentencing. Her sentencing hearing is scheduled for September 2025, so about in a month. Given her cooperation, she may receive leniency, but the judge will consider her involvement in enabling Michael Pratt's scheme. Finally, we get to Matthew Isaac Wolff, 43 years old, who was Pratt's closest partner and longtime friend. If you recall from my original episode, Wolff co-owned GirlsDoPorn and was deeply involved in every aspect of it. He helped recruit victims alongside Pratt, often operated the video camera, filming approximately 100 videos himself, managed the business's books, and oversaw the shell companies they used for the ruse. Wolff, like Michael Pratt, hails from New Zealand. He moved to the US in 2011 specifically to work on this porn venture. When the FBI raid came in October 2019, Wolf was arrested alongside Ruben Garcia. Initially, Wolf fought the charges and maintained his innocence, but as evidence mounted, including the harrowing victim testimony, Wolf opted to change his plea. On July 26, 2022, Wolf pleaded guilty to conspiracy to commit sex trafficking. By admitting his role, Wolf acknowledged that he had lied to women and even instructed others, like Teddy Gee, to lie, fully aware that the videos would be disseminated online. Wolf remained in custody while awaiting sentencing. During that period, many victims prepared statements to address him in court. In January 2024 and again at Wolf's sentencing hearing in March, approximately 30 survivors stood up in the courtroom to speak about what the defendant had done to their lives. The accounts were wrenching. The women spoke of shattered trust, public humiliation, and even years of trauma. Many described struggling with substance abuse, depression, and even multiple suicide attempts as a direct result of the videos being posted online. One young woman told the court, "That ad seemed harmless, but it wrecked my entire life. The fallout from the videos spread to every part of my life like cancer. I lost my modeling career, my college years, my whole 20s, my friends, and my family. Matthew Wolf stole my life, and it wasn't just my life. He stole hundreds of lives." Another survivor shared, "I was robbed of my privacy, my dignity, and my peace of mind. But worst of all, I was robbed of my identity. Mr. Wolf shattered who I was. Today I'm taking my identity back. I am not a victim, I'm a survivor." On March 19, 2024, Matthew Wolf was sentenced to 14 years in federal prison for his role in the conspiracy. U.S. Attorney Tara McGrath praised the survivors who confronted Wolf, saying, "We applaud all survivors who courageously speak out in pursuit of justice. Their voices rang out in the courtroom today, and we stand beside them in holding Mr. Wolf accountable for the incredible pain and suffering he caused." FBI Special Agent in Charge Stacey Moy echoed that sentiment, calling Wolf's actions a sordid picture of exploitation. She continued, "Wolf's sentencing today and any past or future proceedings related to this case are small slivers of justice for the victims, but ultimately don't fully heal the deep pain that was caused by the defendants." These official statements highlighted that while the legal system can punish the perpetrators, true healing for the victims is an ongoing process. For many, it never ends. With Wolf, Garcia, and Gee now convicted and serving time, and Valerie Moser awaiting punishment, only Michael Pratt, the ringleader, remained to be fully brought to justice. After his extradition and initial not guilty plea, Michael Pratt was staring down a potential life sentence if convicted on all counts. Over a dozen women were prepared to testify about how Pratt personally deceived, coerced, and even physically forced them during filming. In a notable example, victim number 1 from the indictment recounted how Pratt himself rushed her through signing a contract without letting her read it, filmed her for hours despite promising a short shoot, and then ignored her desperate pleas to remove the video once it appeared online. Faced with such evidence, Pratt eventually chose to cut his losses. On June 5, 2025, in a surprise development, Michael Pratt pleaded guilty in federal court to 2 key counts: conspiracy to commit sex trafficking, covering the years of 2012 to 2019, and sex trafficking of one victim from May of 2012. This plea was part of an agreement with prosecutors, likely in exchange for dropping the remaining charges. In his plea deal, Pratt admitted in detail to being the mastermind of the entire scheme. He confessed that he came up with the idea for GirlsDoPorn and ran it with Matthew Wolf as a single venture, even launching a companion site called GirlsDoToys to maximize profits. Pratt acknowledged that he and his employees routinely lied to recruits about the videos never going online, knowing full well that these promises were false. He admitted to using reference girls, young women paid to provide false reassurance to hesitant models, a tactic that Ruben Andre Garcia helped implement. Pratt also admitted that he took active steps to hide the fact that he owned GirlsDoPorn, using fake business names like Begin Modeling and Bubblegum Casting on paperwork so the victims would not realize the connection. In short, Pratt put to rest any illusion that he was uninvolved or unaware. He owned it all, profited immensely, and disregarded the harm to the victims. By entering this guilty plea, Michael Pratt avoided a lengthy trial and spared the victims the ordeal of reliving their trauma on the witness stand. However, he now faces a severe penalty. Under the law, sex trafficking conspiracy alone carries up to a life in prison, with a mandatory minimum of 15 years. Pratt is scheduled to be sentenced on September 8, 2025, before Judge Sammartino. Prosecutors are expected to seek a term that could keep the 42-year-old Pratt in prison for decades, potentially for the rest of his life. Given the scope of Pratt's crimes, it would not be surprising to see a sentence at or near life imprisonment. It is not known what sentence will be sought, but any request for leniency will have to contend with the gravity of the offenses and Pratt's attempt to evade justice for years. As of this update, 2 final court dates remain on the horizon. There's Pratt's sentencing in early September, and a week later, Valerie Moser's sentencing, which will take place on September 12th. Moser, having pleaded guilty to the conspiracy, will likely receive a lesser sentence than the others due to her role and cooperation, but she still faces potentially a decade or more behind bars. Federal prosecutors have emphasized that each participant in this scheme, no matter how peripheral, played a part in the victimization and will be held to account. Looking back, the road to justice in the GirlsDoPorn case has been long and arduous. It spanned multiple court cases, both civil and criminal, and required the bravery of dozens of young women speaking out about deeply personal trauma. Over the years, some observers worried that Michael Pratt might escape consequences entirely by hiding abroad. But with his capture and guilty plea, that doubt has been erased. All the principal conspirators in the GirlsDoPorn enterprise have now either been convicted by a jury or admitted their guilt in court. Ruben Andre Garcia is serving 20 years in federal prison. Matthew Wolf is serving 14 years. Teddy Gee served his term, which was 4 years, and demonstrated remorse for his actions. Valerie Moser awaits the court's judgment, having turned on the boss she once assisted. And Michael Pratt, the architect of this cruel scheme, will soon stand before a judge for final sentencing. In the courtroom, many of the survivors have finally had the chance to address those that wronged them and to reclaim their narratives. The justice system's slow grind has at last caught up to Michael Pratt and his accomplices. Now, nearly 6 years after the scheme was exposed and the first charges were filed, accountability is at hand. The men and women behind GirlsDoPorn have been unmasked and brought to justice, one by one. And with Michael Pratt soon to be sentenced, this story may finally be headed toward resolution.